Good morning, it's Saturday, it's 9 o'clock and I'm here at Northala Parkruns in Northolt. We are in the midst of Storm Amy. We had a lot of rain yesterday, so hopefully it's not too wet on the course and winds are expected to pick up, but hopefully we can get round before the worst of it. I've not done this course in a wheelchair, so it'll be interesting to give it a go today, so let's get on with it. The most striking feature here at Northala Fields are the 4 artificial mounds that have been built. These were constructed using rubble from the demolition of the original Wembley Stadium. If you've driven into or out of London along the A40, you may have seen these hills. If you're coming here for the parkrun, the best parking is at Northala Fields Car Park 1. There are 5 blue badge spaces here, and it's then around 500 metres to get to the meet point and around 400 metres from the finish line. This is along a smooth tarmac path that's fairly flat. There is additional parking in Northala Fields Car Park 2. There are 2 blue badge spaces here. However, it's a little bit harder to get from here to the start and end points as you have to get around the mounds. For both of these car parks, it is a charged parking. I couldn't tell if these were free for blue badge holders or not. There was no one there to ask, so I did end up paying. However, if you know better when you come here or if there's someone to ask, then you may be able to park here for free. If not, I would suggest paying for the time that you are here. Once parked, you head over to the main central area where there is a cafe, a play park, a fishing shop, and that is where the briefing takes place. There are public toilets here, however they are just individual cubicles which are not accessible. However, having spoken to the people at Get Hooked on Fishing, they have an accessible toilet. They were happy for me to use that, and that if anyone was coming for parkrun and had accessibility needs, they'd be happy for you to use the toilet in here. For the briefing, you stick around in this area. During the briefing today, the run director did actually mention that I was taking part, asking everyone to be cautious and give me extra space. I'm unsure if I liked being mentioned or not, but I guess it could have helped out. Once the briefing is complete, you'll all go together to the start line. This is around 100 metres away and stays on a smooth tarmac path on a slight decline as you go past the lakes. The course start does go back the way you're currently heading, therefore park runners will start to queue from the start line going back along the tarmac path. This means you do need to weave your way through this start line crowd to a chosen start point. I didn't go too far in today as I found it hard to navigate. I then did find it hard to spin around with my front wheel attachment on, but I made everyone aware and they were very helpful and gave me some nice space. If you don't mind starting on the grass, you may consider starting on the edge of this path, and it might be a little bit busy, but I prefer to stay on the tarmac surface even if it was a little bit crowded. The start of the park run goes back up the slope you've just been down to get to the start point. You then take a right which goes past the Central Cafe building. This is following the path you did in reverse when you were coming from the car park earlier over to the start point. This is a fairly smooth tarmac path and is pretty much flat most of the way along, so quite nice to pick up some good speed along here. As you reach the car park, you will then take a left, turning up onto a gravel path. This path is fairly steep uphill alongside the edge of one of the mounds. I found it fairly tough up here. I slowed right down, but I did manage to get up here with no help needed. Once you reach the top of the hill, the gravel path bends around to the left to go behind one of the mounds. You continue along this gravel path, but it luckily does flatten out a bit and at some points is on a slight decline. The path does wiggle around a bit as you'll then pass the second car park over to your right. You'll bend a slight left and then a slight right as you go behind the second of the hills. At this point you do move onto a tarmac path. This bends round to the left, which takes you between 2 of the hills. This path is on a slight incline at the same time as bending to the left, but this is not for too long until it heads back downhill. This downhill takes you back past the briefing point and central building. As you pass the fishing building, when I was here, there was a family of swans over to the edge of the path. They did mention this in the briefing as apparently they can sometimes migrate over to be on the path, so you just need to watch out for these. This is a lovely smooth downhill section which then levels out but continues on this smooth surface. Therefore I got to pick up a lot of speed along here. This does mean I was overtaking people, so I made sure to shout that I was coming past so people could just be mindful and stay out of the way. There is the odd bit along all of the tarmac surfaces where the path is slightly cracking, so just stay mindful of this the whole time. But I found with my front wheel there was no areas where this cracking impacted me at all. You will then cross a small wooden bridge before you take a sharp left alongside the playing fields, which will be over to your right. The first part stays on tarmac, so stays nice and smooth, and is plenty wide enough to pass or be passed. Just watch out for any debris on the floor, and there were a few areas of puddling along here. You weave along here till you take a right to follow the perimeter of the playing fields. Along here you move on to compacted gravel path. Although it is compacted gravel, be mindful of a few loose areas along here, and there are parts where the path is breaking up a bit and some potholes are forming, but it's still fairly smooth along here. You continue straight, but there are a few other paths that join onto this one, so just be careful of any other park users who may be entering onto your path. You'll then take another right, joining between the fields. Here the path is slightly narrower. I pretty much took up the whole of this path with my chair, so if people wanted to overtake, they did so on the grass. If you're needing to overtake along here, if you cannot navigate the grass, then it would be best to shout that you're coming and politely ask if they don't mind moving over to the grassy area. This path then passes past a caged sport field. You'll then turn onto the left, following along this caged area still. This is continuing on compacted gravel path and does stay fairly narrow. Again, watch out for any pothole areas along here, and there were a few puddles that had formed with all the rain that we'd had. There was no real option of avoiding going through these, so I just had to take it through the middle of the puddles. Follow along the path, where you'll then take a right to follow back along the park perimeter. Here you continue on a compacted gravel path, but it does widen back up, which makes it easier to navigate. You'll then wiggle along to continue following the perimeter. There was one area where there was lots of fallen twigs along the path, which with my front wheel, this was no worry, but could be impactful for others. You will then leave the playing field area and cross over what feels like a road, but there were no marshals here, so I don't think it's actually a live road, but I made sure to look both ways before crossing, so just be mindful of this. You join back onto a compacted gravel path as you enter into a woodland area. There were lots of fallen trees and twigs here, so depending on the time of year, be careful along here as there may be obstacles or it could be slippy underfoot for those who are running or walking. Even though it was a stormy day, it was actually very warm, so going through this woodland area brought some welcome shade. However, if you do struggle with broken sun coming through the trees, then just be careful of your vision as you go along here. As you exit the woodland area, you take a right to join back onto a tarmac path. This first part of the path, although being tarmacked, it did seem to be in the worst state of all the tarmacs, so it's quite blistered along here, so just be mindful. You then take a left where the tarmac is back being much better quality, but there's still the odd bit of cracking. Continue to weave through here till you take a left. This is joining back to the path you did in reverse earlier. Be careful as there's one area where you pass through a stone-built wall. The gap is plenty wide enough to fit through, just be careful. This path initially is nice and flat and along a lovely smooth tarmac, so good to get up some nice speed. It then does go on a slight incline, the same as it was at the start, but because I've had the time of getting my speed up where it's been nice and flat, rather than the stationary start you did right at the beginning, I did not find the impacted me doing it for this second time. As you reach the top where the main centre building is, rather than turning right like at the beginning, you turn left to go past the hills that you've yet to be passed. Take a right turn onto a compacted gravel path to go back up the hill along the mound. The surface here is not as bad as the initial incline you did, so it's easier to go up, but does slow me down a little bit. It's quite narrow along here, but plenty of room for people to overtake on the other side of the path or going onto the grass. You then join back onto the tarmac where you bend to the left as you go back past the main mound. This is now the first part of the course in reverse. So you pass the car park 2 on your left this time, you join back onto a rough gravel path as you bend around the different mounds. Coming this way, it was actually a bigger incline than I was expecting, having not noticed it was much of a decline when doing this in reverse. You will then bend to the right to go back down the initial climb you did. This is fairly steep, so speed does pick up a lot. I was potentially going a little too quick when I realised I needed to take a tight right turn back to join the main initial path next to the car park. I personally enjoyed the thrill of it, but it was potentially a little bit hairy, so just be careful here, as I could have quite easily toppled over. Now you're back onto the smooth, flat tarmac path, all the way along to the finish line. It is nice to have this at the end of the course, as you can get a nice quick finish and can see the finish line coming into sight, so you know that it's nearly over. Here it's a short finish funnel which stays on tarmac. You grab your token and then the scanners are over to the left. They do stand on the grass, so the path does not get congested, but when I went to the edgemost scanner, meaning I could stay on the tarmac as they scanned my token. Today I finished this course in position 180 out of a field of 338 parkrunners in a time of 30 minutes and 36 seconds. So that's parkrun done for another day here from Northala Fields. Storm Amy's picking up now, it's getting a fair bit windy and luckily for most of the course it's even okay, or maybe I wasn't noticing it. This course it does start to go a fair bit uphill along here. A lot of the paths are stony gravel and it seems the worst of the parts happen to be on the uphills, which makes it even more fun to do. So I actually thoroughly enjoyed doing this course and it did test my arm going up the hills. Let me know what you think if you've done this parkrun before, or if there's any others you want me to go do, let me know down below. Thank you for watching and I'll see you for the next one.